There comes a moment in every human life when you stand face to face with a wall so imposing, so absolute, so seemingly insurmountable that every fiber of your being whispers the same defeated message: this is where your story ends. The wall looms before you, casting shadows over your dreams, blocking the path to everything you've ever wanted. Standing as silent testimony to the limits of human possibility. But what if I told you that this moment, this precise instant when you feel most defeated, is actually the moment when your greatest triumph begins? What if the wall isn't the end of your story, but the beginning of your legend? What if it's not a barrier designed to keep you out, but an opportunity designed to lift you up? What if the very thing that seems to block your path is actually the path itself, disguised as an obstacle, but revealing itself as the ultimate teacher? The greatest gift, the most profound opportunity for transformation that life could possibly offer. The ancient Chinese have a saying: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. But there's a deeper wisdom hidden in these words that most people miss. The tree doesn't grow despite the obstacles in its path. It grows because of them. The roots don't strengthen in soft, easy soil. They deepen and spread when they encounter rocks, clay, and resistance. The trunk doesn't thicken from gentle breezes. It becomes mighty from weathering storms that would topple lesser growth. You are that tree. The walls in your life aren't punishments from an indifferent universe. They're the very resistance that your soul needs to grow strong, to reach higher, to become the magnificent force of nature you were always meant to be. Every wall you face is an invitation to discover not just what lies beyond it, but what lies within you, capabilities you didn't know you possessed, strength you didn't know you carried, potential you didn't know was waiting to be awakened. When Thomas Edison's laboratory burned down in 1914, destroying millions of dollars worth of equipment and decades of research, he could have seen that fire as the ultimate wall, the final barrier between him and his life's work. At 67 years old, most people would have called it a sign to retire, to accept defeat, to surrender to circumstances beyond their control. But Edison understood something profound about walls. They're not there to stop you. They're there to show you how badly you want, what's on the other side. He gathered his family to watch the fire burn, saying, "All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." The wall of destruction became his doorway to recreation. The barrier of loss became his opportunity for discovery. The end of one chapter became the beginning of an even greater one. He rebuilt not just his laboratory, but his legacy, creating some of his most important inventions after what others would have seen as his greatest defeat. This is the fundamental truth that separates those who surrender to walls from those who scale them. Walls don't define your limits. They reveal your possibilities. They don't show you what you can't do. They challenge you to discover what you can become. They don't mark the end of your journey. They mark the beginning of your transformation. But here's what most people don't understand about walls. They're not solid, permanent, or insurmountable. They're illusions masquerading as reality. Temporary obstacles disguised as permanent barriers, challenges pretending to be impossibilities. The wall that seems so real, so absolute, so final is often nothing more than a test of your commitment. A question asked by the universe: how badly do you want what's on the other side? Consider the Berlin Wall, perhaps the most famous barrier in modern history. For 28 years, it stood as a symbol of division, separation, and impossibility. People looked at it and saw permanence. They saw concrete evidence that some things could never change, that some barriers were too solid to overcome, that some walls were too high to climb. But on the 9th of November, 1989, ordinary people with nothing but hammers and hope began chipping away at what had seemed unbreakable. They didn't have government permission or special equipment or supernatural powers. They had something more powerful, the unshakable belief that no wall is permanent when the human spirit demands its removal. The wall that had divided a city, a nation, and a world for nearly 3 decades crumbled not because of armies or explosives, but because people refused to accept that barriers have to be permanent. They understood that every wall is only as strong as our willingness to accept it as insurmountable. This is your moment of truth right now in your life. There are walls that seem just as permanent, just as insurmountable, just as final as the Berlin Wall once seemed. Maybe it's the wall of financial limitation that tells you success is for other people. Maybe it's the wall of educational barriers that whispers you're not smart enough to achieve your dreams. Maybe it's the wall of social circumstances that suggests you don't have the right connections, the right background, the right opportunities. Maybe it's the wall of past failures that haunts you with evidence of your limitations. Maybe it's the wall of other people's expectations that keeps you trapped in a life that doesn't fit your soul. Maybe it's the wall of your own fear that paralyzes you with visions of everything that could go wrong instead of inspiring you with possibilities of everything that could go right. But here's the truth that will change everything. These walls exist only in your perception. They have power only because you give them power. They seem permanent only because you haven't yet discovered the tools to dismantle them. They appear insurmountable only because you haven't yet developed the vision to see over them, the strength to break through them, or the creativity to find another way around them. The most successful people throughout history have one thing in common. They refuse to accept walls as final answers. They saw them as temporary questions that demanded creative solutions. They understood that every wall is actually a door in disguise. Every barrier is actually a bridge waiting to be built. Every obstacle is actually an opportunity dressed up as an impossibility. When Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the company he co-founded, he faced what seemed like the ultimate wall. His life's work was taken from him. His dreams were shattered. His identity was stripped away. He could have seen this as the end of his story, as proof that some barriers can't be overcome, as evidence that even the most passionate dreams sometimes hit walls too solid to break through. Instead, he saw it as the beginning of his greatest chapter. He said later that being fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to him. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. The wall of rejection became the doorway to reinvention. The barrier of loss became the bridge to discovery. During his time away from Apple, he founded Next, which would later provide the technology that saved Apple. He bought Pixar, which revolutionized animation and storytelling. He fell in love and started a family. He developed the perspective, skills, and wisdom that would later make him one of the most visionary leaders in history. When he returned to Apple, he brought with him everything he had learned during his exile. The wall that seemed to end his story became the foundation of his legacy. This is how walls work when you understand their true purpose. They don't end your story, they edit your story. They don't destroy your dreams, they refine your dreams. They don't limit your possibilities. They expand your capabilities. Every wall you encounter is actually the universe asking you a question. Are you ready to become who you need to be to get what you want? The wall isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. It's not there to stop you, it's there to prepare you. It's not blocking your path, it's revealing your path. Because here's the secret, that most people never discover the person who can overcome the wall is not the same person who first encountered it. The wall doesn't just test your current abilities. It demands that you develop new ones. It doesn't just challenge your existing strength. It requires you to discover strength you didn't know you possessed. When you truly understand this, everything changes. You stop seeing walls as evidence of your limitations and start seeing them as invitations to your evolution. You stop asking, why is this wall in my way? And start asking, what is this wall trying to teach me? You stop trying to go around the wall or wait for it to disappear and start preparing to climb it, break through it, or transform it into the very foundation of your success. The wall before you right now isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your ascent. It's not a sign that you should give up. It's a signal that you're about to level up. It's not proof that your dreams are impossible. It's evidence that your dreams are so valuable, they require you to become extraordinary to achieve them. As we embark on this journey together, exploring how to transform every wall from a barrier into an opportunity to climb, remember this, you are not reading these words by accident. You are facing your wall for a reason. You have been chosen by life to scale heights that will not only transform you, but inspire countless others who are standing before their own walls, wondering if they have what it takes to climb. The answer is yes. You do have what it takes, not just to climb your wall, but to transform it into the very foundation of your greatest triumph. The wall isn't a barrier. It's an opportunity to discover just how high you were always meant to soar. Number, the mindset that sees ladders where others see walls. In the depths of human consciousness, where thoughts are born and realities are shaped, lies the most powerful force in the universe. Mindset. It's the lens through which you view your world, the filter that determines whether you see possibilities or limitations, opportunities or obstacles, ladders or walls. Your mindset isn't just how you think, it's the architect of your experience, the director of your story, the creator of your reality. Most people live their entire lives never realizing they're wearing glasses. These invisible lenses, crafted from years of experiences, conditioning, and unconscious programming, determine everything they see, everything they believe possible, everything they attempt or avoid. Some wear the glasses of limitation, seeing walls everywhere they look. Others wear the glasses of possibility, seeing opportunities hidden in every obstacle, ladders concealed within every barrier. The difference between these two ways of seeing isn't genetics, education, or circumstances. It's choice. It's the conscious decision to remove the glasses of limitation and put on the glasses of possibility. It's the recognition that you are not a prisoner of your perspectives, but the author of your worldview, not a victim of your circumstances, but the architect of your experience. When Roger Bannister stood at the starting line on May 6, 1954, he wasn't just preparing to run a mile, he was preparing to shatter one of humanity's most limiting beliefs. For years, the 4-minute mile had been considered not just difficult, but physiologically impossible. Medical experts declared that the human body simply couldn't sustain the pace required. The wall of impossibility seemed built not just of physical limitations, but of scientific certainty. But Bannister had developed a different mindset. Instead of seeing the 4-minute barrier as a wall that proved human limitations, he saw it as a ladder that would reveal human potential. Instead of focusing on all the evidence of why it couldn't be done, he focused on the possibility that it could be done. Instead of accepting the collective belief in impossibility, he chose to believe in the power of human potential to transcend perceived limitations. When he crossed the finish line in 3:59, he didn't just break a record, he broke a mindset. Within 1 year, 16 other runners had also broken the 4-minute mile. The wall that had stood for centuries crumbled not because human physiology suddenly changed, but because human psychology shifted. The barrier wasn't physical, it was mental. And when one person proved it could be overcome, the collective mindset transformed. And what had seemed impossible became achievable for many. This is the power of mindset. It doesn't just change what you think is possible, it changes what actually becomes possible. Your beliefs about your limitations become your actual limitations. Your assumptions about what you can achieve become the boundaries of what you do achieve. Your mindset doesn't just interpret reality, it creates reality. The most transformative shift you can make is from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. From seeing walls as permanent barriers to seeing them as temporary challenges. From believing your abilities are static to understanding they're expandable. This isn't just positive thinking or self-help philosophy, it's neuroscience. Your brain possesses neuroplasticity, the ability to rewire itself throughout your entire life. Every time you choose growth over limitation, every time you see opportunity instead of obstacle, every time you focus on possibilities rather than problems, you're literally reshaping your neural pathways. Consider the story of Jim Carrey, who grew up in extreme poverty, living in a van and working as a janitor with his family to survive. The wall of economic limitation seemed absolute. Society's message was clear. People from his background don't become successful entertainers. The conventional mindset would have accepted this barrier as insurmountable, would have seen his circumstances as evidence of his limitations, would have viewed his dreams as unrealistic fantasies. But Carey developed a different relationship with walls. Instead of seeing his poverty as a barrier to success, he saw it as motivation for transformation. Instead of viewing his circumstances as evidence of his limitations, he saw them as temporary conditions that could be changed. He wrote himself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered, dated it for Thanksgiving 1995, and carried it in his wallet as a physical reminder of his commitment to transform his reality. The check wasn't magical thinking, it was mindset training. Every time he looked at it, he reinforced the belief that his current circumstances weren't his final destination. Every time he carried it, he reminded himself that walls are temporary and possibilities are permanent. Every time he dreamed about cashing it, he strengthened his vision of what was possible. Just before Thanksgiving, 1995, he signed a deal to star in Dumb and Dumber for exactly $10 million. The wall of poverty hadn't just been climbed, it had been transformed into the very foundation of his success. His early struggles gave him the hunger for achievement, the appreciation for opportunity, and the material for the comedy that would make him one of the most successful entertainers in the world. This is how the growth mindset works. It sees every wall not as evidence of what you can't do, but as training for what you can become. It understands that abilities aren't fixed traits, but developable skills, that intelligence isn't a permanent limitation, but an expandable resource, that talent isn't something you either have or don't have, but something you either develop or neglect. But here's what most people miss about mindset transformation. It's not about ignoring reality or pretending challenges don't exist. The growth mindset doesn't deny the presence of walls. It simply refuses to accept them as permanent. It acknowledges obstacles while remaining committed to finding ways over, under, around, or through them. It sees clearly what is while remaining focused on what could be. When Oprah Winfrey was born into poverty in rural Mississippi, faced abuse, and experienced rejection after rejection in her early career, she could have adopted a victim mindset. She could have seen each barrier as evidence that success wasn't meant for people like her, that her background disqualified her from greatness, that the walls in her path were too high to climb. Instead, she developed what she calls a gratitude mindset, a way of seeing that transforms every experience, even painful ones, into opportunities for growth and service. Her difficult childhood didn't become a barrier to her success. It became the foundation of her empathy and the source of her ability to connect with others facing similar struggles. Her early career setbacks didn't prove her inadequacy. They taught her resilience and refined her authentic voice. She understood that the walls in her life weren't punishments from the universe, but preparation from the universe. They weren't designed to limit her potential, but to develop her character. They weren't evidence of what was wrong with her story, but invitations to write a more powerful chapter. This gratitude mindset, this ability to see gifts in every experience, is perhaps the most powerful aspect of the growth mindset. When you can find value in every situation, when you can extract wisdom from every setback, when you can discover opportunity in every obstacle, you become literally unstoppable. Not because you never face walls, but because you've learned to see every wall as a ladder in disguise. The ancient Stoics understood this principle deeply. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, wrote, while facing war, plague, and personal tragedy, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He recognized that obstacles aren't separate from the path. They are the path. The wall isn't blocking your journey. It is your journey. This perspective transforms everything. Instead of asking, how can I avoid this wall? You start asking, how can this wall serve me? Instead of wondering, why is this happening to me? You start exploring, how is this happening for me? Instead of seeing walls as evidence of bad luck, you start recognizing them as opportunities for growth, learning, and transformation. But developing this mindset requires more than understanding. It requires practice. Every day, you're faced with choices that either reinforce a fixed mindset or develop a growth mindset. Every time you encounter a challenge, you can choose to see it as a threat or an opportunity. Every time you face a setback, you can choose to see it as evidence of your limitations or as feedback for your improvement. Every time you meet a wall, you can choose to see it as a barrier or as a ladder. The most successful people throughout history have mastered this choice. They've trained their minds to automatically look for the opportunity in every obstacle, the lesson in every loss, the gift in every challenge. They've developed what psychologists call cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt their thinking to new situations, to see multiple perspectives on the same event, to find creative solutions to seemingly impossible problems. When Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination and had no good ideas, when he was fired from a newspaper for lacking creativity, when his first animation company went bankrupt, he could have seen these as walls that proved his limitations. Instead, he saw them as feedback that helped him refine his vision and develop his skills. Each rejection taught him something valuable about his craft, his market, and himself. Each failure prepared him for the success that would eventually transform entertainment forever. He understood that the wall of rejection wasn't trying to stop him, it was trying to strengthen him. The barrier of failure wasn't designed to end his dreams, it was designed to deepen his commitment. The obstacle of criticism wasn't meant to silence his creativity, it was meant to refine his voice. This is the mindset that sees ladders where others see walls. The understanding that every obstacle is actually an opportunity in disguise. Every barrier is actually a bridge waiting to be built. Every wall is actually a ladder that requires you to develop the strength and skill to climb it. When you develop this mindset, something magical happens. You stop being afraid of walls because you know they're actually opportunities for growth. You stop avoiding challenges because you understand they're invitations to develop new capabilities. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances because you recognize yourself as the creator of your experience. The wall that once seemed insurmountable becomes manageable because you're no longer looking at it from the bottom. You're seeing it from the perspective of someone who's already begun to climb. The challenge that once seemed impossible becomes achievable because you're no longer asking, can I do this? But what will I learn while doing this? The barrier that once seemed permanent becomes temporary because you're no longer focused on its solidity, but on your ability to transform it. This mindset doesn't eliminate walls, but it transforms your relationship with them. Instead of something to be feared, they become something to be embraced. Instead of evidence of your limitations, they become proof of your potential. Instead of obstacles on your path, they become stepping stones on your journey to greatness. The mindset that sees ladders where others see walls is available to you right now. It doesn't require special talent, perfect circumstances, or other people's permission. It requires only the decision to see differently, to think differently, to believe differently. It requires only the commitment to look for opportunities instead of obstacles, possibilities instead of problems, ladders instead of walls. Every wall you face is an invitation to develop this mindset. Every challenge is a chance to practice seeing differently. Every obstacle is an opportunity to discover that what seems like a barrier is actually a bridge. What appears to be an ending is actually a beginning. What looks like a wall is actually a ladder waiting for you to start climbing. Number the beliefs that transform stone into stepping stones. Deep within the caverns of your subconscious mind, far below the surface of your daily awareness, lie the beliefs that truly govern your life. These aren't just thoughts you think or ideas you entertain. They are the fundamental assumptions about reality that shape every decision you make, every action you take, and every possibility you can even imagine. They are the invisible architects of your destiny, the silent directors of your life story, the powerful forces that determine whether you see walls as permanent barriers or temporary challenges waiting to be transformed. Your beliefs are not passive observers of your reality. They are active creators of your reality. They don't just influence how you interpret what happens to you. They literally determine what can happen to you. When you believe something is impossible, you don't see the opportunities that could make it possible. When you believe you're limited, you don't take the actions that could expand those limits. When you believe walls are permanent, you don't develop the tools necessary to climb them. But here's the revolutionary truth that most people never discover. Your beliefs are not facts about the world. They are choices about how you'll experience the world. They're not unchangeable truths carved in stone. They're flexible interpretations that can be rewritten, redesigned, and completely transformed whenever you're ready to step into a larger version of your reality. Consider the belief that held humanity captive for thousands of years, that human beings could never fly. This wasn't just a casual opinion, it was a fundamental assumption about the laws of nature, supported by centuries of evidence and reinforced by religious doctrine. People didn't just think flying was difficult, they believed it was impossible, against God's will. Contrary to human nature, this belief was so entrenched that it shaped entire civilizations. Resources weren't invested in flight research because everyone knew it was impossible. Brilliant minds didn't pursue aviation because the collective belief system declared it a waste of time. The wall of impossibility seemed built not just of physical limitations, but of divine decree and natural law. Then came Orville and Wilbur Wright, two bicycle mechanics from Dayton, Ohio, who dared to believe differently. They didn't just challenge the technical problems of flight, they challenged the belief system that declared flight impossible. They understood that before they could get humanity off the ground physically, they had to get it off the ground mentally. They had to transform a collective belief that had turned a stone wall of impossibility into a stepping stone toward a new reality. Their success wasn't just about engineering and persistence. It was about the courage to hold a belief that contradicted everything their society held as truth. They believed that the laws of physics could be harnessed rather than simply accepted, that human ingenuity could overcome natural limitations, that what seemed impossible was simply a problem that hadn't yet been solved. On the 17th of December, 1903, they didn't just achieve 12 seconds of powered flight, they shattered a belief system that had limited human possibility for millennia. They transformed the stone wall of impossible into the stepping stone of inevitable. Within decades, flight went from impossible to commonplace, from miraculous to mundane, from unthinkable to essential. This is the power of transformative beliefs. They don't just change your personal reality, they can change the world's reality. When enough people shift from limiting beliefs to empowering ones, when individual transformation reaches critical mass, entire civilizations can leap forward in ways that seemed impossible just moments before. The most fundamental belief shift you can make is from seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances to recognizing yourself as the creator of circumstances. This isn't about denying that external events happen. It's about understanding that your response to those events determines their ultimate impact on your life. You may not control what happens to you, but you have complete control over what you make it mean and what you choose to do with it. When Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years, he faced the ultimate test of this belief. He could have adopted the victim mindset, seeing himself as powerless, defeated, forgotten. He could have believed that his circumstances defined his possibilities, that his physical captivity meant his spiritual captivity, that the stone walls of his prison were permanent barriers to his dreams of freedom and justice. Instead, he chose to believe that his imprisonment was preparation, not punishment. He saw his cell not as a limitation, but as a classroom where he could develop the patience, wisdom, and moral authority he would need to lead his nation's transformation. He transformed the stone of suffering into the stepping stone of strength. He used his time in prison to study his captors, to understand their fears and motivations, to develop the empathy and strategic thinking that would later enable him to negotiate a peaceful transition from apartheid to democracy. When he emerged from prison, he wasn't diminished by his experience. He was enlarged by it. He had transformed 27 years of confinement into 27 years of preparation. The stone walls that were meant to break him had actually made him stronger, wiser, more capable of achieving the very freedom and justice they were designed to prevent. This is how empowering beliefs work. They transform every experience, even painful ones, into opportunities for growth, learning, and development. They see setbacks as setups, obstacles as opportunities, walls as challenges that strengthen rather than barriers that weaken. The belief that transforms stone into stepping stones is fundamentally this: everything that happens to you is either a blessing or a lesson, either a gift that advances you toward your dreams or feedback that redirects you toward a better path. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is meaningless. Nothing is purely negative. Every experience has value if you have the wisdom to extract it and the courage to apply it. But changing beliefs isn't as simple as deciding to think differently. Beliefs are deeply rooted in your subconscious mind, formed through years of experience and reinforced by consistent patterns of thought and emotion. They're like grooves worn deep into a record. Changing them requires patience, persistence, and a systematic approach to reprogramming your mental software. The first step is becoming aware of your limiting beliefs. Most people are unconscious of their most powerful beliefs because these beliefs masquerade as reality rather than interpretation. They don't think, I believe success is for other people. They think success is for other people, as if it were an objective fact rather than a subjective choice about how to view the world. Start paying attention to your internal dialogue, especially in moments of challenge or frustration. Listen for phrases like, I always, I never, people like me don't, it's impossible, I can't. That's just how things are. These are the verbal expressions of limiting beliefs. They're not descriptions of reality, they're choices about how to interpret reality. The second step is questioning these beliefs rigorously. Ask yourself, is this belief absolutely true? How do I know it's true? Can I find examples of people who have succeeded despite similar circumstances? What would be possible if this belief weren't true? What would I attempt if I knew I couldn't fail? What opportunities might I be missing because of this belief? When you begin to question your limiting beliefs systematically, you often discover they're based on outdated information, other people's opinions, or isolated experiences that you've generalized into universal truths. You realize that many of your facts are actually familiar stories you've been telling yourself for so long that you've forgotten their stories rather than realities. The third step is replacing limiting beliefs with empowering ones. This isn't about lying to yourself or engaging in wishful thinking. It's about choosing beliefs that serve your growth rather than limit it. Instead of, I'm not smart enough, try, I can develop any skill I need through effort and practice. Instead of success is for other people, try success is available to anyone willing to pay the price in effort and persistence. Instead of I always fail, try I learn something valuable from every experience. But here's the crucial part. You must act as if your new beliefs are true. Beliefs become real through action. You can't just think your way into new beliefs. You must live your way into them. Every time you act in alignment with empowering beliefs, you strengthen them. Every time you act in alignment with limiting beliefs, you reinforce them. This is why challenges are so valuable for belief transformation. They give you opportunities to practice your new beliefs under pressure. When you face a wall and choose to see it as a climbing opportunity rather than a permanent barrier, you're not just handling that specific situation, you're building evidence for the belief that obstacles are opportunities, that walls are challenges rather than limitations, that what seems like stone can become a stepping stone. Consider the story of Colonel Sanders, who didn't achieve significant success until he was 65 years old. For decades, he carried the belief that his best opportunities were behind him, that success was for younger people, that his circumstances limited his possibilities. These beliefs created a reality that matched them. He struggled financially, faced repeated failures, and lived a life far below his potential. But when he was forced to live on Social Security and faced the prospect of poverty in his old age, he chose to adopt a different belief system. He decided to believe that his recipe for fried chicken was valuable, that persistence would eventually pay off, that it was never too late to achieve success, that rejection was just redirection toward the right opportunity. He faced 1,009 rejections before someone finally agreed to use his recipe and pay him a percentage of sales. At an age when most people believe their possibilities are over, he was just discovering his potential. His willingness to persist in the face of overwhelming rejection wasn't just about determination, it was about beliefs. He believed his recipe was valuable. He believed persistence would eventually pay off. And he believed it was never too late to transform stone into stepping stones. The belief that transforms stone into stepping stones is ultimately a belief in your own power to create meaning, to extract value, to find opportunity in every experience. It's the belief that you are not a passive victim of circumstances, but an active creator of possibilities. It's the belief that every wall you encounter is not a permanent barrier, but a temporary challenge that can be overcome, transformed, or used as the foundation for something greater. This belief doesn't guarantee that you'll never face difficulties or that success will come easily. What it guarantees is that you'll never waste an experience, never miss an opportunity for growth, never see yourself as powerless in the face of challenges. It ensures that every stone in your path becomes a stepping stone toward your destination. Every wall becomes an opportunity to develop your climbing skills. Every obstacle becomes a chance to discover strengths you didn't know you possessed. When you truly believe that everything in your life is either a blessing or a lesson, either a gift or feedback, either a stepping stone or a teacher showing you where to find one, you become unstoppable. Not because you never face walls, but because you've learned to see every wall as raw material for building the staircase to your dreams. The beliefs that transform stone into stepping stones are available to you right now. They don't require special credentials, perfect circumstances, or other people's permission. They require only your willingness to question the beliefs that limit you and embrace the beliefs that empower you. They require only your commitment to see every experience as an opportunity for growth and every challenge as a chance to discover what you're truly capable of achieving. Number, the vision that reveals hidden doors in every wall. In the landscape of human achievement, there exists no force more powerful than vision. Not the physical ability to see what is, but the spiritual capacity to envision what could be. Vision is the architect of impossible dreams, the artist that paints possibility onto the canvas of limitation, the master key that reveals hidden doors and walls that others see as impenetrable barriers. When you possess true vision, you don't just look at walls, you look through them, around them, beyond them, to the extraordinary reality waiting to be born on the other side. Vision is not daydreaming or wishful thinking. It's not a vague hope that things will somehow work out or a fantasy that requires no effort to achieve. True vision is a clear, detailed, emotionally compelling picture of a future reality that you're committed to creating, a destination so meaningful and magnetic that it transforms every obstacle between here and there into a stepping stone on your journey toward its realization. When you possess authentic vision, walls cease to be permanent fixtures in your reality and become temporary challenges that require creative solutions. You stop seeing barriers as evidence of impossibility and start seeing them as puzzles that demand innovation. You no longer ask, how can I avoid this wall? But rather, what door is this wall hiding? And how can I find the key to unlock it? Consider the vision of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. standing before the Lincoln Memorial on the 28th of August, 1963, sharing his dream with 250,000 people and millions more watching on television. He wasn't just describing a pleasant fantasy or expressing wishful thinking. He was articulating a vision so clear, so detailed, so morally compelling that it had the power to transform not just individual hearts, but an entire nation's understanding of what was possible. His vision didn't ignore the walls of segregation, discrimination, and hatred that stood between the reality of that moment and the dream he described. He saw those walls clearly, acknowledged their existence, understood their power, but his vision was so compelling that it revealed hidden doors in those seemingly impenetrable barriers. He saw a path through injustice toward justice, a bridge across division toward unity, a way to transform hatred into love. That vision didn't just inspire those who heard it, it activated them. It showed them that the walls they faced weren't permanent features of reality, but temporary obstacles that could be overcome through collective action. Moral courage and unwavering commitment. The vision revealed doors that had always been there, but had been invisible to those who couldn't see beyond the walls that stood in front of them. Within a decade of that speech, legal segregation had been dismantled, voting rights had been secured, and a nation had begun the long journey toward the more perfect union that King envisioned. The walls that had seemed so solid, so permanent, so insurmountable had revealed their hidden doors to those who shared his vision and committed to making it reality. This is how vision works. It doesn't eliminate walls, but it transforms your relationship with them. When you have a clear, compelling vision of where you're going, you stop seeing walls as final destinations and start seeing them as waypoints on your journey. You stop asking, why is this wall blocking my path? And start asking, what is this wall teaching me about the path I need to take? But here's what most people don't understand about vision. It's not just about seeing the destination. It's about seeing yourself as someone capable of reaching that destination. True vision has two components: the external picture of what you want to achieve and the internal transformation of who you need to become to achieve it. You must envision not just the success you want, but the person you need to become to create that success. When John F. Kennedy announced the goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth before the end of the 1960s, he wasn't just articulating a destination, he was calling forth a transformation. He was challenging America to become the kind of nation that could achieve the impossible, to develop the technology, the courage, the collective will, and the innovative spirit necessary to turn an audacious dream into tangible reality. The vision didn't just require rockets and calculations. It required a fundamental shift in how Americans saw themselves and what they believed was possible. It demanded that they see themselves not as earthbound creatures limited by gravity and circumstance, but as explorers capable of transcending any barrier, including the ultimate barrier of Earth's atmosphere itself. Your personal vision must have this same transformative power. It must call forth not just external changes, but internal growth. It must require you to develop